For any of the emerging ones that pop up, LTC20, DRC20, SRC20, etc., we just saw that Gate.io actually just partnered on an LTC20 indexer. If any of these other emerging ecosystems look for support for you guys, do they have to provide the indexer to you, or is that kind of like a collaborative effort to make sure that all that data is nicely packed and correct?
Yeah, there is a collaborative effort that takes place in the background. It's tough to do all of it on our own. We'll have the group chats, we'll have the discussions, and really try to collaborate to make it work. It's important that we do that. And one thing we really do try to do, even when we are creating our indexers, we try to make it, decentralize it, and try to open source it as much as possible. We did that at the ORC20. That's a very important thing to be able to do with the help of other people that are with Gate.io. If we were to do something with them, we need to have those closed room discussions on how to do it the most effective way.
Welcome back, everybody, here for another episode. I'm here today with Adev, who's a part of the business development team over at GeniiData, who has recently made their way into the Ordinal space. I had to reach out and have a conversation with them. I've been seeing a lot of Bitmap, a lot of different BRC20, I guess, analytical terminals begin popping up that wasn't Dune dashboard. And so I see that the Ordinal space has found a new competitor with GeniiData. And so we're going to talk here with Adev about everything GeniiData and Ordinals. So thank you for sharing your time with us, bro.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me and allowing me to creating the space for allowing us to speak on GeniiData and all Ordinals. You know, it's exciting times in the Ordinal space, so we're excited to be part of it all.
It's really cool because I've now been recording in the Ordinal space for podcasts specifically, about 6 months now. And now I would say in today's current time, there is a bunch of larger teams who are beginning to migrate into the Ordinal space to kind of help with some of that kind of immature infrastructure that exists. And of course, in the crypto space, that's, it's really data rich. Things like GeniiData are very important, so we could really understand what's the actual user base and how much of it is a lot of fluff per se, which is something that is kind of written within the crypto space. But just, short and concise, can you just explain just top level, what is GeniiData?
Yeah, for sure. We're basically a data warehouse facility. We're a data provider. So anyone who can, write SQL and has experience with coding within that area can basically create dashboards. And like you said, has the ability to seek out if there's fluff in the Ordinal market or, fluff in Ethereum. We're integrated onto a couple different chains, Bitcoin as well, not just on Ordinals, but with other things going on in Bitcoin. So yeah, anything that you basically want to be able to kind of prove with data, you can do that within our dashboards.
So for those that are listening, and I guess just for easy clarification comparison, would this be similar to Dune dashboard that the majority of the crypto space is familiar with?
Yeah, Dune, Flipside Crypto, similar. We do take a little bit of a different approach to some things, but overall, yeah, I would say that's our closest comparison as far as what we're doing in the marketplace.
What would GeniiData's strength be and differentiator compared to the others that you'd mentioned?
Yeah, I think one differentiator is our GeniiData studio, our Genie Studios. So anyone can basically create their own profile and anyone can view it. So it's visible to all, it's transparent to all. So that could be either a strength or it could also be a deterrent, but we consider it more of a strength because then everyone can share everything they've found, all the different studies they've done, all the different theses they've had, they can share it with the world in a sense. So I know on Flipside Crypto and Dune, your profile is more opaque, and it's not as transparent to everyday users.
I'm not gonna lie, I tried to create a Dune dashboard many months ago for Emblem, and I really could not figure out how to do it because I'm not a developer. Does GeniiData offer any type of services or ease for non-devs like myself?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's one thing. Even myself, I'm not a dev, but one thing I will say is we're not necessarily doing that. We do have tutorials on our website. That's one thing we do want to get more into is make it easier for someone that is a novice in SQL or is just getting their foot in that whole space to be able to create the dashboards. I also think an important thing is to be able to read and understand what the different metrics are on the dashboard is displaying. So, I think having educational tutorials on that is something we're definitely looking into, and it can be super powerful for the whole space.
You could really never have too much education in this space. Everything is quite confusing. I've learned that through my experience at Emblem, that you need to deploy text-based information, video-based information, audio-based information, because everyone really learns through a variety of mechanisms, and it's really tough to know. So you really got to throw it out there. Going back to kind of the original foundation of GeniiData, when was the company founded? What chain did it begin on? And kind of just go through the early history of Genie.
Yeah, for sure. We're considered a startup. We've been around for a little over a year now, and we started really as only really as an insight marketing or insight data marketing or insight data market company, right? So we wanted to basically be another Dune Analytics, but have some type of differentiator as far as being able to have data basically uploaded as quick as possible onto different projects that are happening on the different chains. We wanted to be able to like facilitate that and create like a speedy process for those things to take place. And then as well as the Genie Dashboard Studios was our differentiator. So we focused on that for the first 6 months. We were basically conceptualized. And then from that point, we decided to kind of maneuver a little bit and test the waters out in different areas, which was trading. We created a trading tool that utilizes on-chain data as far as what's happening on-chain for DEXs and like the unusual volume that's happening there. And then we also have an alert that occurs on centralized exchanges, and we have unusual volume alerts on there as well. So then we created this really cool tool called Flow, and that's another trading tool we have on our website, and people can use it. It's right now free, and you just need to create a profile or connect your wallet. And yeah, so we moved kind of to there. So we had the insights and the Flow tool working pretty like in sync around April, May time, so a couple months ago. And then we saw, Ordinals and ORC20s and other places in the space kind of like making a lot of noise. And like we have a pretty comprehensive product development team that's always working around the clock and really trying to uncover and bring like the top tier data points to the whole marketplace. And we saw ORC20 was coming out. It was like another version of what BRC20 is. And we saw there's no indexer, and we wanted to provide that. We think, providing infrastructure for high-end plays like ORC20 at the time was a good idea. So we made an indexer, the first ever on that token standard. And it got a lot of excitement and hype, and people started to recognize who we were and what we were doing. And eventually we kind of started to move more into ordinals. So if you go on the insights tab, you can actually see like we have ordinals, ord games, bitmaps, the namespace. And like if you look at the trending, the newest, we have all of the different dashboards that kind of bring up what exactly is happening in the ordinal space and the excitement behind it, and anyone that's creating a project on ordinals can create a dashboard. And we've been seeing that pop up the last couple of days, which is pretty awesome.
When you look at the newest tab, it's pretty much only ordinals. So within the last, let's see, there's 12 that have been created in the last day, and you got Ordinals, Bitison, Ordinals, Bixel, Pokey, Bitmap. You have I know Sam Sage, Bitison, Poshi, Ordinals. So it's really just strictly Ordinals are coming in. It sounds like you guys have really, taken hold of this. I opened up this one for Tap Protocol, which I believe is the new staking mechanism that Track put on for Bitmap. But just help me kind of digest and understand this so that we are completely on the same page here. So there's three boxes on here: mint progress, tap protocol deploy, and then valid inscriptions. It seems pretty straightforward, but from your side as kind of the operator of this, what should I know as a user of landing on these type of pages on how to read the variety of these kind of dashboards?
Yeah, for sure. Before we get into that, I did want to say, like you kind of mentioned that there's now all these creators coming on to our platform and creating their own dashboards, which is quite awesome to see. We've reached this kind of like inflection point where people are starting to recognize Dune isn't the only one that kind of is integrated with Ordinals. We're also integrated, and we're doing it as big as how they were doing it, which is pretty awesome and a good way to navigate. Me personally, when I always go onto it, I go Insight tab, and then I always go Insight tab, and I click, the trendy. I do trending, and then I see, what's happening, and then I'll do newest always, and I always like click on what's, the top tier ones. And like I was looking at Ordinal's Bixel #1 by Ordinal Bixels, which I thought that was so cool that someone on the team created their own, dashboard to help the whole community out. And this is basically holders that's the pie chart. Yeah. And then, what's really cool is like the whole feature and user interface is pretty easy to kind of, like you said, easy to move around and really get a good idea of how it all works and how it all interacts with each other. So it's kind of straightforward as far as like, what you want to look at, what's happening, everything for the most part. If you see, it's all real time updates. So like last 35 minutes ago, that was the last Y that was minted. So now it's 534. And if you look here, it says the total holders and total wires basically out there, and it updates every, real time, which is pretty awesome to see. But it's crazy to see all of these, Ordinal dashboards. It was slow at first. We weren't getting a ton of people to come that were in the Ordinal space to come make dashboards. And then again, we weren't as integrated as we are now. But once we really plugged in the last month, we started to see a huge influx of Ordinal creators and builders coming and really displaying what's taking place in the space.
This is a little bit more vibrant of dashboard that just pulled up here from Poshi. It had a bunch on there. Ordinal Bitmap index, total Bitmap holders 22,000, 2.74 unique holders, 802,000 total supply. You get some nice graphs, and then you go down for the wallet count, right? These kind of things are very important, especially for Ordinals in a sector that isn't bound by smart contracts and it's highly, dependent on social consensus. These type of data aggregators are even more important, in my opinion, because there's no way to really enforce different types of logic and data. And so these are constructed. If I wanted to create a dashboard, where do I go to create that? Or what is the right page to go to so that I can understand the rules and guidelines to setting this up?
Yeah, for sure. You go to query where it has the box where it says query. You see now you have your own GeniiData studio, so you can put your own name on whatever you want it to be. So now anyone can you can like share that with anyone. And then you just go to add worksheet to the top right.
Oh, and then this is where you come in and says, please use Spark SQL to query. I believe that's a language, right?
Yeah, that's a different SQL language, but it's very, we try to make it very simple. It's not as complex as some of the other data warehouse providers. I would say we're like closer to the more simple versions of it, right? But yeah, that's basically if you go there, I'll show you like these are like tutorial ones that we've made in the past, you can even like copy paste it. But if you go to the left, you see we have Ordinals chain specific just for Ordinals, and then you can go bitmaps. Yeah, we plugged into many different chains, but this, we're really trying to make a push for Ordinal. So we have it first. So people see here, you can like, these are different type of metrics you can use right away as your, SQL for the SQL language. You can plug it in right away. And we did something special with Org Games. Org Games was one of the first actual additions we added to the Insight tab. And then we slowly start adding bitmaps. And then you can also do the namespace from inscriptions and stuff.
The namespace, there was a namespace dashboard that I had found, which was what turned me on to GeniiData originally, because there's so many namespaces that are created consistently on here. If you just pay attention to that, you'll probably be able to find some alpha here. But looking at the chains too, you're integrated with Algorand, you have Bitcoin, you have BSC, Polygon, Starknet, Arweave. Looks like there's about 10 here. Is Ordinals, you mentioned that you're moving into ordinals, you're putting a high emphasis on that? Is that because it's the largest user base, or you guys view that ordinals has potential to become one of the largest kind of ecosystems in the industry?
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of it. It's we view, at least for our standpoint, we think we can make the biggest impact on ordinals. And we don't know if ordinals will be like the next, huge big thing as far as like make the impact that ETH NFTs did in 2020, 2021. But, even if it makes some type of like impact, if it does 10% of what ETH NFTs did, and we can have our footing and position correctly when that happens, we're really excited about the future that, we'll have within the whole ordinal ecosystem.
Yeah, this makes sense. And now I've pulled up here the inquiry for the ORC20 balance by address. You mentioned that this was GeniiData's first entrance into kind of ordinals to begin with. For those that don't know, ORC20 is this upgraded version of BRC20, upgraded by, depending on what your own subjective opinion is, as created by a few individuals. It's like a one-way wrap equivalent, I would say. It's caught some attention. There's definitely some benefits to it. There's some disadvantages as well. How is ORC20, I guess, how has the ORC20 endeavor been for GeniiData? Is this something that is actively maintained and upgraded, or was this just something that was just the first foray to kind of get your feet wet?
So it's a little bit of both. We know a lot of it depends on OrgDAO and what they do and the consensus we can come to with them as far as whether certain governance issues should be taking place, whether there should be certain rules or changes that should be happening within the ORC20 token standard. And, we need to make sure that we're on the same page as them, so the indexer always stays valid and accurate. And so like we're still putting resources and time into it, but not as much as we would as, let's say, Ordinals, Bitmaps, and that whole ecosystem within Ordinals. But ORC20 still on our minds, and we still want the best for that whole ecosystem. We just know overall that it's been slowed down a lot, the ORC20 ecosystem. But who knows what can happen once Bitcoin goes. I think what we'll see is with ordinals, it goes on runs when Bitcoin goes on runs, just like all, NFTs do, or all ecosystem plays do. And potentially ORC20 could see a rotation, there could be more of a liquidity rotation into ORC20 after BRC20 and other ordinal plays, get their liquidity.
That makes sense. You mentioned that you guys started with ORC20, then you moved to Bitmap. You helped create the first indexer for ORC20, but it seems like now hundreds of different standards that are consistently popping up, right? Because it's a social consensus chain, so there's no formal standardization until it's implemented later. How does GeniiData go about kind of analyzing all of these new ideas, and what is the process for implementation into the platform?
Yeah, great question. I think one thing we really always look at is like the builders that are going onto certain like protocols, token standards, and what they're doing. So that's one thing we always like take a glimpse at, is like, where is the dev power going? Where is the influence going? And at a point, we saw ORC20 getting a lot of attention, a lot of dev power, a lot of like smart minds moving there, and also where liquidity is moving too. We take all of that into consideration, and that's where a lot of our, and also another thing is we look at where innovation it lies, right? With Bitmaps, that's one thing we really were excited for, is because there could be a lot of interesting things that come from Bitmaps. Not necessarily saying it'll be the next metaverse in Bitcoin, but a lot of like cool things can be built on top of Bitmaps, like different gameplays and different things of that nature, and as well like the whole idea behind Bitmaps, how the scarcity issue and the block, the whole like correlation between Bitcoin blocks being mined and then one, Bitmap being, or a few of them being issued, is pretty cool, and we really like the idea of innovation. So I think that's a big reason for why we move into certain plays or certain projects or things that are happening.
Yeah, I agree as well. I pulled up here the Ordinals tip browser, which I believe is supposed to be this social media layer on top of Bitmap. I find Bitmap to be quite interesting from our perspective, that it's a pure theory. And what I mean by that is, of course, it's built upon ordinal theory, but there's a lot of leverage into, where the data is stored in the SegWit discount. And there's a lot more, I guess, use of the Bitcoin blockchain. Whereas here with Bitmap that's built on top of it, right? It's this idea of kind of splitting up at the time about 800,000 different blocks, and then continuous to represent a different type of a piece of land, which now it's being parceled, and you're seeing all these different ideas being introduced. It's really tough to know what is going to actually succeed. I kind of see it as like this domain of philosophy, to where whoever can put their idea out there first with the most kind of support and then build upon it is generally going to be the idea that wins. But we're seeing now there's a lot of contention after kind of this first that first kind of like mad rush where the price, like, I don't know, went up like 100x or something like that, 50x. It's quite chaotic. Is there anything that you are personally interested in the ordinal space, or is there any kind of alpha that you could give for us that maybe GeniiData is looking at in terms of the ordinal ecosystem?
Yeah, I'll go first with myself personally. I think like what makes me kind of excited, I'm more of a safe play in NFTs and ordinals and, like that whole ecosystem. I think overall, like what makes me a little bit excited is the idea of having just the overall idea of ordinals. I think that's an exciting new innovation, and potentially GameFi on Bitcoin is exciting, and I want to see where that goes, whether, it integrates a L2 and it basically scales from that. But yeah, I'm excited with that. I love like seeing, people like Sam and others just continuously building, whatever, they're just building things that not necessarily are like, these new top tier and highly innovative ideas, but they're building things that can potentially be the building blocks for those new high innovative ideas. And I love to see it, me personally, and even the people on our team love to see them utilizing our whole platform as well. Mm-hmm. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. Sam's a good guy. I see him kind of building consistently. I mean, I've pulled up the video here as well, so you guys kind of watch it in the background as it kind of explores GeniiData. Have you guys looked into some of the other emerging ordinal ecosystems in terms of Litecoin, Dogecoin, Bitcoin stamps, and now even ETH inscriptions, RC20 as well? So kind of got like 5 or 6 of these like emerging token ecosystems that are all very similar.
Yeah, so we've looked into them all. It's all about, at the end of the day, for us, is like community. If there's like a pretty like strong community behind what's happening, then we kind of give it more attention. Like even with the Litecoin, we've heard from a couple others. We've done spaces and we've had people on the space be like, "Hey, why don't you guys do Litecoin inscriptions? That might be the next big thing, And we're looking into those type of things. Even ETH inscriptions too could be really cool. But we're like kind of staying loyal to right now ordinals, and we're always like, we're agnostic as far as what chains we like and stuff of that nature. We just want to overall see adoption within the whole space. And we know data is, such a very important aspect to this whole space. So if we can bring it and try to democratize it as effective as possible, then, we're willing to do whatever we can. And so if that's something like ETH inscriptions, if that means that we got to move into Litecoin inscriptions, we'll be willing to do something of that nature.
Tell me a little bit about the structure of GeniiData. How large or small is the team? Are you guys a typical crypto company that's kind of scattered across the world? Do you work in one kind of geographical region? And has GeniiData received any type of funding, or are they backed by any type of VC or fund?
Yeah, as far as we go with, like, as long as we've been around, or yeah, like I said, we've been around for a year plus now. We're headquartered out of Singapore. We have about a team of it's about 30 plus, and I live in Miami. I live in Florida, so I'm in the other side of the world, the other side of the world. Yeah, and we have a few others that are living in Africa, some living in Dubai, some living in other areas of the world too. And we're all over the place and always working around the clock. As far as like raising goes, we're not necessarily backed by any VC currently, but we are open to that idea. We're becoming more and more open to ideas like that. We're just trying to it's because it's a tough world, being backed by VCs, because then you have to really, we're not as free to be as dynamic as we are. Like we've been moving from different things to see what really is like our like what makes the most sense for us. And if we had a VC backing us, they would be like, no, stick with one thing. They would have a lot more control, and I think that's what makes us powerful, is we're not bounded by the VCs telling us what to do. We're able to kind of figure out do things on our own standard.
The VCs do get this negative stigma kind of attached to them, but I think it depends on what type of product you're building that requires additional capital. For one, if you're an NFT project who's just like a PFP project, getting a boatload of capital that's funded by a third party really feels like a detriment to your holders. And I think a lot of NFT holders have really expressed that, right? Because you're not equity holders if you're holding a token. Whereas if you're building infrastructure or an analytical tool, in order to scale, you need additional funding, right? To hire more bodies, to cover costs and things like that. I've also become a little bit more open, to that idea, as well as I've now spent almost a year at kind of an infrastructure company. It's quite interesting to see. And you were in Miami. You're kind of literally right at the center of it. How's that experience been down in Miami? Are you from there, or you had moved there for GeniiData to kind of be in the center and the thick of the crypto industry?
No, I'm not from Miami. I wanted to move here to be more in the center. I lived in Tampa most of my life, which is only 4 hours north. So it wasn't like too big of a move for me. And then I moved to Miami since I've been with GeniiData. So like it was a good play. It was a coincidence, kind of like getting on GeniiData and then as well being in Miami. So it worked out well. We went to Bitcoin Miami down here and had a few different events that I went to represent GeniiData, and it was a good time. But like as far as like the VC, I agree with you. It's finding like the right fit. And sometimes it's kind of hard, but yeah, like, overall, I mean, why wouldn't you be open to that idea if they're going to, fund you to help you with resources and all of that nature. And then as well, to let you be free and discovering whatever it is that can help you like grow in that specific niche that we're in, which is data providing. So yeah, we're definitely open to it, and just the right people need to come by. I think we're making noise right now, which is good, and we're starting to get like some, like, we want to be making noise and get the right people behind us. And I think that's how you do it, making noise in the right industry and really providing a lot of value, which we're trying really hard to do.
What is the business model for a company like GeniiData? How do you incur revenue? From what I've seen, from at least exploring it, there was no kind of pay portal any sense. It looked like a lot of the Ordinal builders who were opening up dashboards looked like it was free from a sense. So how do you, as this analytical dashboard, generate revenue now, currently, or the plans moving forward?
Yeah, so there is some type of paywall when it comes to our premium account version. So like if you want to upload off-chain data yourself and explore into other things that are happening, off-chain, or not, that we don't have necessarily integrated into, you can upload your own data, but that is, you need to pay for the premium version. So there are some premium versions. We, even with our trading tool, we'll eventually have a subscription service to that when we push that out a little bit more. And then as well, we have things in the work that are going to be providing, we'll take some type of fee, right, when it's happening on our platform. I don't want to give too much info on it because we're still in the works with it, but there's something that we're providing in the whole ecosystem that will enable it to be a lot easier to do certain things. And obviously we'll take some type of fee on the back end for that. So we are exploring into more revenue generating sources, but like we do believe once we get the proper users on our platform, we get the proper amount of like visibility as well, and as well when it's the right time in the market, because right now it's actually perfect that we're free, right? Because everyone can use us, everyone gets familiar with us, you can get grandfathered in, right? And then eventually we'll slip it in here, it costs this much. Once we get the right user base, the right visibility, just like Dune Analytics does. Like they have a free version, but they have some top tier versions that cost money, and we're positioning ourselves to do something similar to that for our dashboard as well.
Right. You want it to be as cheap as possible during the bear market. And then once all of the degens enter the bull market, you flip the switch to turn on the premium button. And, it's kind of smart. I think it's what most people do as well. Exploring the different business models in the crypto space is not as straightforward as a lot of people make it to seem, especially if you're an NFT company where royalties went to zero. A lot of them are kind of really flailing around trying to figure out what's the right mechanism, to generate revenue. Because at the end of the day, we're all businesses. It seems like it is, this crypto world that's, exclusive to the internet and has no boundaries. But in order to survive, you have to generate some revenue in some sort of sense. So the premium model, I think,
that was the exciting thing for NFTs too, was like that perpetuity and royalties, and then boom, got eaten away from these different marketplaces that wanted to make a name for themselves, but they didn't realize what they were doing in basically making it harder for people to get involved in the space, which is like sad to see, to be honest with you. Super sad. But hopefully the integrity gets instilled back into the whole NFT market, and people becomes, like there's some type of way where royalty system can't be compromised.
I was always under the opinion and impression that there's going to be some sort of royalty standardization across the board. I know it does feel like it's kind of this race to zero, but they haven't actually gone completely to zero. They have definitely found mechanisms to kind of go around it. But I always thought that these marketplaces would eventually just say, hey, we're doing a 1% royalty across every collection, and that's what it's going to be moving forward. And that's kind of the end. Unfortunately, a lot of the bigger marketplaces are kind of in this user war, and where all the retail is kind of caught in the crosshairs in the meantime. But on the other end, if you're a business, right, you can really be thriving. And if I am a business and I want to, work with GeniiData, is there like a B2B product that you guys offer, or how does that approach go if I want to have a deeper partnership with GeniiData as a, we'll call it, say, a platform operator?
Yeah, that's something we definitely want to explore more into. We don't necessarily have a B2B software or like dashboard or data solution, and that's something we definitely should, be willing to explore more into. But as of now, if you're like a business, you just create a dashboard like a retail would create a dashboard, and we could definitely upgrade on that and be more comprehensive as far as doing something for business to business. But we still haven't really tapped into that market, which it's a good idea. I know Dune does that and a few others, but Inflipside Crypto I think does that as well.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are just a year old, whereas Dune is multiple, and I think Flip had a pretty large backing. I think they have a lot of like pretty large investors in it. So, capital and time is the two things that you need to do to scale. But to bring this all back, kind of circle it back to Ordinals, where we really came from. What are you guys looking at least in this current time in the bear market, about Ordinals? What are you analyzing? Are there any expectations that you have looking forward, or are you guys really just kind of following Bitmap is kind of what it sees, or is kind of what it seems so far?
No, I think we're following trends a lot too. We're following what makes sense, following where the volume is moving. And I said like I said before, dev power. So we were seeing where a lot of like dev and influential figures are moving. I think that's an important thing. And the thing about with GeniiData, which is cool, is once we build something and we've integrated it, it's always there. So it's not like useless building. It's like, here, we built it and now it's there. We devote a little bit of time to upgrading and stuff, but overall, like the ORC20 indexer, we built it. It didn't like necessarily pan out like the way we wanted to, as far as like how the whole token standard would have panned out. And it's still there though, right? And we still have the ORC20 indexer there, and we still have the ORC20 token standards there, still being traded and stuff. Some tokens are being minted, right? Inscribed as well. As long as we build something, there's some type of like community involvement and some type of community being cultivated around this whole movement, we feel like we're pretty well positioned, and we just want to really have like we want to give stamp of approvals for certain projects that we've done with Ord Games, what we did with ORC20 Index, or with Bitmaps, and a lot of like the SNS namespace. That dashboard went viral. I think having viral dashboards. Think as well with our trading tool, that's been a very like, that might be a sleeper, one of our sleeper products. It's a completely different audience, but we're trying to incorporate and garner an audience, not just necessarily in the analytical space or data space, but as well, in the trading space. So we're also seeking and looking and building that as well. So we're trying to have a few different things going on in the background, and then whatever really like sticks and makes the most sense, we'll give energy there, and then like whatever thing comes around that's like super exciting, we're building infrastructure plays to really make it like even more exciting. That's our like our goal and vision.
If you could build a trading view kind of tool for BRC20, I think that would be highly beneficial for the community and for you guys. I have not seen really any solid ones so far, at least that reports on real-time data. Although I'm assuming you probably have to build like an indexer and stuff, because it's still a very centralized kind of ecosystem in today's current climate.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, we're looking into things like that. Our product development team is, I would say they're really understanding of the time and what's happening. And that helps a lot. It's not just people that are being told what to do. They're looking at the news, they're looking at what's happening and what's really having a lot of interest. And I think they surprise me sometimes when I hear what they're developing. I'm like, wow. I'm like, it's a really good idea to do that, and can see a lot of attention. Like even with the ORC20 index, I was surprised that we made our splash into that, because we we're really focused at that time. We were really focused on the trading tool, but we made the ORC20 indexer within a couple weeks. And we did it the best they've seen, the ORC20 or ORC Dow, so I have pretty high confidence in what they're bringing, and I'm all for them, and I just try to bring the business to them and the marketing to them, and try to do it at the highest level possible. Both sides of the coin, both teams, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's your role as part of the business development team, right? To bring as many opportunities as possible to it. In terms of the indexer, I know it could take multiple weeks to build. This is one of we'll say the largest bottleneck in terms of all of these RC20 kind of ecosystems. For any of the emerging ones that pop up, we'll say, LTC20, DRC20, SRC20, etc. We just saw that Gate.io actually just created or just partnered on an LTC20 indexer. If any of these other emerging ecosystems look for support for you guys, do they have to provide the indexer to you, or is that kind of like a collaborative effort to kind of make sure that all that data is nicely packed and correct?
Yeah, there is a collaborative effort that takes place in the background. It's tough to do all of it on our own. So like we'll have the group chats, we'll have the discussions, and really like try to collaborate to make it work out. It's important. It's important that we do that. And one thing we really do try to do, even when we are creating our indexers, we try to make it like, we try to decentralize it and try to open source it as much as possible. We did that with the ORC20. And like that's a very important thing to be able to do with the help of other people that are like with Gate.io. If we were to do something with them, we need to have those closed room discussions on how to do it the most effective way.
Yeah, I saw Domo today actually came out and said that they're looking into building on-chain indexers on a variety of different L2s between Alex Bridge and Stacks, Internet Computer, and there was another one that I wasn't familiar with. So hopefully, next time we have this conversation, a lot of that will be solved. So Adev, appreciate you for coming on and for also taking GeniiData and providing some necessary analytical tooling to the ecosystem. It seems like the Bitmap community, the SNS, and a handful of others have already jumped on it and are continually building. So we appreciate you and GeniiData for coming in and showing interest in the Ordinal space. And I appreciate you for sharing your time with us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jake. It's a pleasure. And hopefully we see a ton more communities come on board and start building dashboards and get involved in the whole GeniiData ecosystem.
Yeah, if I was a dev, I would do it, man. But I'm one of the fellow no-coders out there. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate you guys for listening and watching. We'll catch you next time.
Me too, man.